Hi, everybody. My name is Marquita. I just want to tell you my story. Um, I live in North Carolina. I'm a mother of five. And today is so important because 29 years ago, I was hit by a car on April 14th, 1993. I am 38 with five kids. And the reason why I decided to go live is to tell my story. And a lot of people know it, some don't. So I'm going to share this with you guys. On September the 18th, my oldest child, which name is Jada, was hit by a car. And it was like the worst day of my life. She was, I had picked her up from work. She had just started working at Walmart. I had picked her up from work, and she was just so enthused on going to our community pool that was right across the street from our house. And I told her that the pool was closed, but she insisted on going anyway. And she goes to the pool, and this is a area to where it takes 5 minutes to go and come back. Me and her stepdad was here on our patio, and um, she was gone for like maybe 30, 45 minutes. And it's so crazy because I had actually had like this eerie feeling come over me, but I brushed it off. And I never thought to call her phone or anything. And I get a knock at my door, and the lady is like, a little girl got hit by a car, and we're just trying to figure out who she belongs to. And I immediately knew right then it was my daughter. And when I got to the scene of the accident, the fire truck was there, the police cars, and the person who hit her was there. And I went straight to the hospital. And when I got to the hospital, of course, I didn't know anything that was going on at the time. I got into the ER little sitting room where they put you in, and I could not breathe. But I knew, and that was like the longest ride ever, but I probably was going 100. And I knew for some reason that she was okay, but she wasn't okay. And so the doctor came in and was like, your daughter was hit by a car, and we cannot understand, like, we don't see any broken bones or anything, but we just cannot understand, like, why she's not waking up. So it's like, it never dawned on me, like, for one, they drove past a couple hospitals where we stay at, and the hospital that we're in is a trauma hospital. So I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, she's just not waking up. So we get upstairs. They take us to upstairs to the ICU room, but we're not able to see her at this time. So they come in and they tell us that she had COVID, but she did previously have COVID 2 weeks before, and she went back to school and everything. She was fine. And so they tell me and her stepdad, hey, since she has COVID, things have changed. You can go back there with her, but if you go back there with her, you have to stay. You cannot leave. Mind you, I have four other kids that I have to tend to as well. So stepdad said, hey, let me do this. Let me stay up here with her. I got it. So I'm like, okay, no problem. I go home. I'm coming back and forth to the hospital, but I can't get in there and see my baby. I can just FaceTime with him and just see my child. This went on for like 4 or 5 days at this hospital. Finally, one day they tell me that, it's so necessary, because I just broke down crying because I needed to get in there with my child. It's so necessary that you get in there and you see her. And I went in there and I just prayed over my baby. And I told my baby she was going to be okay. I said, you fight on the inside, I'm going to fight on the outside for you. So come September the 23rd, she gets her MRI done. And this particular, the day before, on the 22nd, I was telling one of my friends, like, hey, I'm a fast and pray. Now, mind you, I'm the type of person that I believed in God. I believe in God, but I never went to church and I never really read the Bible. So in the ER part, I forgot. Let me go back. I got on my knees and I prayed to God, because it's like, God, can't you got to help me on this. That's all I knew to do was just pray. And so when they did the MRI, and I was at home at the time, but I I decided to get up that morning and fast and pray. Never had done it before, but it was just something that I needed to do. It was very important for me to do. And when I mean fast and pray, I didn't get on no social media. I didn't talk on my phone. I didn't eat no food. I didn't do anything. I just had my phone on gospel and just prayed and just sung songs and just talked to God. And I did that from the time I woke up to 12 o'clock that evening, which for me is like a big thing, So it might not be for others, but it was a big thing for me. So I did that. I prayed, and I was on my way to go to the grocery store to get my kids something to eat because I go to the hospital every day. So I'm going to the grocery store. I get a phone call from stepdad like, "Hey, where you at? Pull over. The doctors are in here to give us her results." And I was like, "No, tell them to wait till I get there." And so they said they will wait. And going, I still went grocery shopping. I dropped the food off, but I didn't speed there. I just talked to God. And on my way to the hospital, I receive a text from a friend of mine, and she texts me, and the text say, "Jesus has given us authority over the power of the enemy, and nothing shall in any way harm us." Luke 10:17 through 19. "Let God be true and every man a liar. Whose report shall you believe? I shall believe the report of the Lord." Now, why I'm telling this is because that scripture right there was so important. So I get to the hospital. They take us in another room because it's like I do not want to have a conversation in front of my daughter, even though she's basically in this state of not waking up, not talking, no nothing. She has tubes coming from everywhere. She's on life support, and I just did not feel like it was necessary to have these conversations around her bedside. So we went into another room, and when I tell you, it was doctors from maybe like 7 doctors in there, and it was people on the outside of the door. And I remember the doctor telling us about her injuries to her brain. He told us that she had stopped breathing for 4 minutes at the scene. So basically, she died at the scene. And because of that, she had an axonal injury to her brain, a traumatic brain injury. And she had a spinal cord injury that detached her spine from her head, C1 through 4. He didn't even go really into the spinal injury. He more just talked about her brain injury. And because of the brain injury was just so bad that it was nothing that they can do. They were just telling me, "I'm sorry. It's nothing that we can do for your daughter." And all I could do was just sit and look at dad. And I mean, dad is just crying. But it never, I scanned the room. I looked at the doctor and I looked out the window and I looked back at the doctor and I said, "I can't accept that." That's just all that could just come out my mouth. "I cannot accept that." And he got up and he walked out. I grabbed Dad's hand and I said, "Hey, we got to go outside. We got to get some air." So we go outside and I said, "Do not make this phone call because our phones are blowing up from people because they know that this is the day she gets her MRI done on." And I was like, "We're not telling no one what was just said to us." And I said, "I'm going to make one phone call." And I called my mother. Now, when I tell y'all, my mother is a prayer warrior like no other. She is a prayer warrior. So I called my mother and I said, "Hey, Mom, I need you to pray." And she immediately, I think she was in Family Dollar somewhere, and she immediately started praying. This prayer was so powerful to where this lady was walking by. She just stopped and she just started praying, because I had it on speakerphone. And she said, "I'm on my way to the hospital." She gets to the hospital. I go back upstairs. We go back upstairs with the doctors. I tell them she needs more time. She was hit by a car. She needs more time. So they say, okay. So by this time, my mother gets to the hospital and my mother is like going in praying. We are praying for my baby. Now, like I told you before, I didn't go to church, but I still believe in God. And so we're praying and my daughter opened her eyes. Not for long, but she opened her eyes. And you know, that day happened and they was on me for like a whole week trying to get me to pull life support on my child. And it was just like, no, I'm not, because I know that God got her. If I can accept if God take her, but not me just pulling life support because you don't believe in God. They was coming to me telling me she was sick, that she was going to herniate, and all of these things was almost like God was cover my ears because I was never processing it. I was never processing what these doctors was telling me. And it was just like when they would be like, she's herniated, she's gonna lose functions and she's gonna, die. It was almost like, okay, what are we doing next? And it's just so crazy how when you go to God and you come to him sincerely from the heart and just asking God, please, God, help me. I need you. They can't do it. Man can't do it. Only you can do this. And a lot of people not gonna understand this or whatever, but I I got to a point now where I really had to trust God. I had to trust him with all my might. And it got to the point to where I woke up on October the 9th and let her dad tell her I chose balance because I was looking around the room. I was scanning her room because by this time I can be in the room now. Because on that day, on September the 23rd, I stayed at the hospital. I did not leave. I did not go back home. I called my sister like, hey, I need the biggest favor I have ever asked you to do in your life or my life. Can you please go to my house and take care of my kids while I be at this hospital with my child? And she did it. And I love my sister. My sister is, I don't even know what to even say. My sister is like the best sister that I could ever think of having because I don't know too many people that just be like, I'm going to just uproot my household and I'm gonna go stay at your house and hold your house down while you stay at this hospital with your child and take care of your child. And so I didn't even go back home to get no clothes. I went to Walmart and bought clothes, so that's how serious it was because it's like, okay, now I'm here and I'm not going nowhere. And so it got to the point to where they was coming in and telling me that, it's nothing that we can do for her. And when I tell you they will bully you, they will bully you. And you have to be strong. I mean, strong, because a lot of people don't understand that when you are at these hospitals and things like that, you be thinking that the doctor has the answer. And they don't. They do not. They do not always have the answer. Because you see someone that looks like, oh, they would never get up, don't mean that's what the case is. It do not mean that. So they had this one black doctor, a lady coming after me. And she was just telling me it was nothing that they can do and things like that. And it was like, no, we're going to fight. So like I said, I woke up on this day and he said I chose balance. And because on her goal board, it said keep comfy, like she was in hospice or something. It was almost like they were just waiting for her to die. So I called my mother up there and we went into this other room with the doctor. And I mean, we went off because it's like, listen, that's my baby. What do I need to do? What do I need to do to save her life? And it's sad that you have to go to those extent with the doctors, So I basically was like, he said, I'm gonna be just frank with you. He said, either you're gonna fight or you're not. And he said, if you're gonna fight, she's gonna need a trach and she's gonna need a spinal fusion. So she ended up getting the trach done. So we talked about getting the trach done. I had the next doctor that came to me told me that he had powers and all these other different things, and he felt like it just was not right to have somebody to live like that. And it's still, again, that's not your choice. When you have God on your side, just believe in Jesus. Believe that anything is possible. Because when I tell you, I ended up counseling him from doing her trach. And another doctor came down the next day and was just stating that, I mean, he was, you can just tell he was I didn't know at the time, he was the chief surgeon at the time. And he was just telling one of the nurses, like, if it was, I understand that, mom, if it was me, I would do the same thing. So I ended up allowing him to do her trach and everything went perfect. And so now she needed the brain, I mean, the spinal fusion done. And the next day, we talked about getting the spinal fusion. So they was like, either the neurosurgeon was going to do it or the orthopedic doctors was going to do it. Now for me, it was like orthopedic. For me, it's like I always thinking about legs and feet and crazy things like that. And they came and they had a conversation with us, and they was telling us that, because you've been told no, we're going to say yes. I didn't even know I had been told no, that neurosurgeons didn't even want to do her spinal fusion. And it's so sad that you can be at a hospital and people don't want to help you. It's the saddest thing ever. Like, why wouldn't you want to help a child? Her skull is detached from her spine. Why wouldn't you want to help her? And so, but he was eager to do it. And he gave me all the risk factors of it and everything. And I was like, oh no, she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. And the surgery was a success. She ended up getting a G tube as well. And we stayed in the hospital for 89 days. Now in this hospital, these days, I'm telling you, that's a hard thing to be in ICU with these kids, and all you just seeing is kids dying left and right, dying left and right. But when I tell you, I had a atmosphere in my daughter's room built off straight positive, built off straight love. If you could not come in there with those things, you could not be allowed to come into her room at all. It was like my baby was healing. She had to heal. I played gospel music. I did all of these things. It was a time that a nurse walked into my room and I was stretched out on the floor, just talking to God, pleading to God, surrendering to God. Because it's like right now at this time, Lord, I need you. I need you. And so it, the more and more that I allow God to take control of this situation, he took control. We came home on January the 5th. Now we came home on a G2, we came home on a tray, and we came home on a ventilator. But I can tell you this, we came home. And God has been showing up and showing out every single day. And I've been told to tell my story. And it was just hard for me to get up here and just tell people my story. And it's so much more to it because God allowed me to see exactly who he was. And I want to just make one point because it's a whole lot more to this story. Um, we came home in January and I was new to this. I knew nothing about this at all. I didn't know anything about really medical taking care of a child on a ventilator or a person period on a ventilator and having a G tube. But these are the things I learned in the hospital. Now, mind you, I didn't really do anything in the hospital. I just watched. I watched. But I came home and I literally took over. A nurse had came in, but we wasn't really having nurses like that. They have a shortage on nurses. And I learned, when I tell you God taught me how to do respiratory and how to do nursing, he taught me this to the point to where there are nurses that come in here, I be training them. And they've been doing this for a while, but I train them. And when I tell you, it's one of those things where they be like, hey, mom lets us know how this is done and how that is done. And I be thinking to myself, well, how these nurses don't know this? But they wasn't trained correctly. And it's sad. But these nurses that I have now on my team, oh my God, we have all male nurses and for my daughter. And when I tell you they come in here and they do a wonderful job, a wonderful job. And just to make this really, really known, this is not even about my daughter right now. This is about winning souls. Because my baby, as even though she's laying, and I had to get on my computer because my phone been acting crazy. I was going there and show you her. She's laying in the situation that she's in. They are considering her quadriplegic, and she, she's not a quadriplegic. She moved. We do pressure support now. She's breathing on her own, and she's not going to have these things anymore. We pray every single night. Me and my kids and stepdad, anyone that's here, every single night at 8:07, we pray. And I say the same prayer. She's going to be made whole. And I believe this. Why I believe this? Because God said so. And it's a lady that me and my friend had watched. She had told me about her, named Tiffany Montgomery. So if anybody watched this and see this, Tiffany Montgomery, that prophet there is the truth. Go and tune in to her, subscribe to her, because in February, I couldn't get nothing done. No help, no nothing. And she preached on Covered by God. And I watched this video, and I mean, it was beautiful. And she do a corporate prayer with her church, and anybody can join in. When I tell you it gets full, it gets full. And she does it at 4 o'clock in the morning, and she do it three days out the first of the month. So I did this fasting and praying with her March 1st. Now before then, we couldn't get nothing done. She couldn't even get transportation to get to the doctors. Every door was closed. She couldn't get the rehab. No rehabs would take her due to her injuries. They said because she had multiple combination of injuries, nobody would accept her into their rehab at all. So I had to bring her home, which is fine because that's the best healing that you can get. When you have family members and stuff, the best healing is being around family, ones that really care as well. So I did the fast and the praying for them 3 days. And when I tell you, God showed up and showed out, baby. He showed up and showed out every single day because it was like we got transportation. We got to a doctor's office. I was trying to get her switched to a whole different hospital and nobody would take her. Nobody. Nobody would accept my baby. Nobody would take her. And now she's with a different hospital. She has two hospitals that's involved in taking care of her care. But we got to the house, we got to this doctor's office, and he was like, all we can do is hope. And that's all I ask. What is it going to cost you to hope with me about my child? Nothing. It costs you absolutely nothing. So it came down to the point to where I did this fast and I prayed, and I just seen God move. I mean, when I say he was moving, things was even happening with her school. She has a teacher that comes on now that's starting, because we're in spring break right now, that's going to be starting next week with her and doing 2 days a week. Now, mind you, my daughter is not responsive or anything. She will open her eyes and those mostly what she does right there, just open her eyes, but she's not talking. Like I said, she has the trait, but she will look at you. Now, really following commands, we're not there yet, but we are going to be there. And that lady taught a lot of different things. She talked about covenants that you might have made. And see, this is the thing. I know I made a covenant back last year. I was getting readings done. Now, people think that's like little on a small scale because I would tell the lady, hey, I believe in Jesus Christ. But still, I was not doing right by God because God is a jealous God. And so, with that being said, I had to go back and break this covenant that I had to make. I done had abortions. I didn't even know that, you're making a covenant with a demon called Mullah. I didn't know any of these things. And this lady and this another prophet minister, Kevin Ewan, I mean, when they teach, they teach. So I have been learning a lot on this journey, but I have been honestly seeing the hand of God move like no other. And it's to the point now to where I know my help only comes from God. It don't be too many people that come and visit my child. And it's okay. That's okay because I know if anything is negative around, we don't want to hear anyway. But God really showed up and showed out. And I'm going to tell you, he showed up and showed out because at the scene where my daughter was at, and a lady reached out to me and she told me, my daughter wasn't by myself. She said it was a couple ladies that was at the scene. And so two of the ladies that was at the scene had just got their certificate, their CPR certificate on that day. And one of the ladies, her class had been running a little bit late and it ran over. So if they would have got out on time, they would have already been at home and wouldn't even seen the scene. Let me tell you how God just sets things up. And it was another lady who told me that she cradled her. She talked to her. She told her she was going to be okay. And she said she shook her head, yes. And she wasn't leaving us. But it was another lady who got out the car and went to the corner and just prayed. She told everybody just bow their heads and just pray. And she said she didn't, the minute she said she started praying and she spoke the name Jesus, they said, we got a pulse. So right then and there, God lined everything up. God worked everything out. And for a while, they didn't know who the lady was that was praying. So I considered that she was just an angel, but I ended up finding out who she was. And we met. She came to the hospital to visit with Jada, and she prayed for Jada. And that just showed me right there that God is real. God is a miracle worker. And even though I didn't know what was going on. He did. He already knew who to place at the scene because these ladies gave my child CPR who was just getting their CPR certificate on that day and had this lady pull over and she said, we eventually found her. And she told me, she said that, you know, I didn't know what to pray at that scene. She said, normally, when you see an accident or something, you don't want to feel like you're in the way. So you just keep going. She said, but God told me to get out and go pray. And I'm so thankful for that lady obedience to go and do that. Because if she didn't, who knows? That all those things needed to take place. All those things needed to happen to where the lady came and she obeyed God. And that's what God be wanting from us, obedience. And a lot of people be like, oh, now you just want to talk about God. What else can I talk about? Because I'm living a scene to where can't nobody do it but him. My baby is laying in a bed, but she can't move. I have to move her. I have to give her feeding through a tube. She has a tray. She has to be suctioned out because she can't cough. She has all these different things attached to her. But with God, she would get up and she would walk and she would talk and she would breathe on her own and she would do all these things in Jesus Christ's name. And I'm telling you, I have gotten to the point where people be like, I just can't believe how, you're so strong. You're so strong. But I'm telling you, I asked God for strength because it was to the point in the hospital, I couldn't even cry. I had to ask God, like, why can't I cry? What is wrong with me? Why am I just sitting here like everything is okay and everybody's around me crying? And he had to come back to me. When I fast on that day on September 22nd, and I prayed out to God and I called out to God, God gave me a strength like no other. It was a ridiculous type of strength because he let me know right then and there was peace and joy coming. She was okay, regardless of what it looked like. And in Romans, let me look it up because I don't want to quote it wrong. I ain't no scripture girl or anything like that. But in Romans 4:17, it say, call of those things which be not as though they were. So that's what we doing. We are calling those things out as is they're here now. And we're thanking God now today before it even happened. Because it's going to happen. She's going to get up. And it ain't going to be nothing that man can say they did. This is all God's duty right here. And I have never been the type, and I don't know who this might help or reach, but don't give up. Don't give up. Do not give up. Let God lead you. Let God show you. God has been bringing people into our life that it's like, oh Lord, what is we doing? What is going on? But He's delivering them. It ain't nothing I'm doing. It's nothing I'm doing. All I can do is follow what is at hand. That's all I can do. Reading the Bible, it's like, you having prayer. We be having prayer, me and a couple other ladies be having prayer. My mom be having prayer on Tuesday, praying for these kids. Keep these kids in prayer because a lot of these kids are not making it. They're not. So keep these babies in prayer. When you lay down there and go to sleep, pray for these kids. Pray for them because the world is so evil right now. And you just never know. And our kids are our future, and they're not making it. They just dying one by one by one, and it's so sad at the rate they're dying at. And even with my daughter, she's 17 now. She had a birthday December, and I know she know how to cross the street. I know she do, but God had to put something in place because always miracle signs and wonders are to follow. And this is the time where God is showing His people who He is and what He's capable of. And if you don't have yourself right with God, you can never say, "Oh, I got to get myself right." It's not gonna work. And you don't want God to humble you, and you don't want God to come after you. You just don't. It ain't the best feeling ever. It's not. So it's like, do what God requests of you. What He requests of you. And I never really understood the request as I do now. And it's like he has blessed me and blessed me and blessed me. And I would tell anybody, God has always blessed me. He blessed me in my home. He blessed me with my kids. He blessed me in every day of my life. But I forgot to tell him thank you. So don't ever consider that you're too big to go back and tell God thank you. And I had a friend that used to just always just say thank you, thank you, thank you, Lord. And I was like, why you always say thank you, Lord? And they was like, because I don't want God to ever think I forgot about him. And that was huge, So I just wanted to give a little update on that. In my journey with my baby. Like I said, this as I'm going through this see God move, I know she's okay. She's not suffering. People like, why are you doing this to her? She's suffering. She's not suffering because this is God's doing. It's not mine. So she's not suffering. God is showing his people who he is. And I thank y'all for tuning in. Share this live. If you know someone that's going through something, just let them know it's going to be okay. God got it. God got it. He can do it for me, her. He can do it for anybody. And our story not over. You will see more of me. You will hear more of this story. I don't know where we're gonna go with any of this, but she's gonna get up and she's going to walk and she's gonna do all the things that I'm mentioning to y'all now. But Tiffany Montgomery, again, tune into her because she have no idea how much of a blessing her sermons and her lives and everything was just such an eye awakening to get things lifted off of me, to be covered doing a new covenant with God, breaking off those old curses. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. And I thank you. I thank y'all. Again, I would do a part two. I would tell you more of the story on our journey, even in the hospital, things that I left out, things that's going on in the home with the nurses that have came on, things that I'm not going to go too much into their life, but I will give you enough of their life that you will understand it, that this is nobody but God in this place. Have a blessed day. Thank you.